Right. Hello, everybody. Steve Griffiths here, developer of the MTP Predictor software program. I'd like to welcome you all to today's training webinar. And I'd like to start by having a look at our risk disclaimer. Right. So for our risk disclaimer, just to remind you that all examples in this training room should be considered as hypothetical. No trades are actually taken. They're just shown for illustration and training purposes only. Remind there's a risk of loss in trading and investing. Put another way, all professional traders know and understand, but more importantly, accept that losses can and do unfold. No matter what trading approach you take, there always will be losing trades. Just a fact of trading life. Right, where should we start? I'd like to start by answering a couple of questions that some of you guys have emailed in over the last week. Some good questions. So we'll start with those. So the first one was from Chris. I can see Chris is in the webinar today. So good morning, Chris. Good afternoon if you're in the UK. And he asked about our MTP trend strength bands. So if you look at our MTP trend indicator down at the bottom here, I won't go over what the colours mean. They're just basically blue for up, black for in the process of making a reversal, and red for down. But can you see these grey lines here? This is in our standalone version here. It's the same as in for our NinjaTrader add-ons, as well as our TradingView scripts as well. But Chris wanted to know what these grey bands were and how to use them. Basically, they're what we called a strength band. Now, what do I mean by that? Excuse me. Well, what I mean is if the indicator here, the base indicator, is above the MTP trend, the strength band as it is here, we deem that the market's strong. If it's below the band, i.e. not quite at the band, we deem that the market is actually weak. And when I mean above or below, I mean beyond it. So if the market's going up, I mean above it here, or if the market's going down like it is here, I mean beyond it here. So when do you actually use these? Well, you only tend to use these when you're in a trade. Okay, so when you're in a particular trade, we don't tend to use it, Chris, when we're actually in normal analysis. We only use it as a trade management tool. So here you can see on the ES yesterday, regular trading hours, you see we had a TS4 buy set up here. If I right mouse click over the blue buy bar, do analysis, you can see how our analysis is placed on the chart. But the most important point is what happens when it gets to the first target. Oops, I didn't mean to do that. I meant to jump to there. So here you can see the trade was a good profit because it came in here, it got to the first target there. But what we do then is we then look at the strength band. We come down here and we look at where the indicator is in relation to the strength band. So can you see here when it actually reached this target? If I bring the cursor down, can you see how the actual trend indicator itself was less than or hadn't reached the strength band? The strength band was here. The indicator was here. So in other words, it was less than or hadn't reached the strength band. In this case, we deem that the market's weak, and therefore we look to come out at our profit target. So in this particular case, because the market is weak, we come out our profit target, and that would have been a nice 2.2 hour profit. So the market basically went sideways after that. Let's scroll back a few days. Let's have a look at another example. I want to scroll back to this TS1 W3 wave trade setup here. Again, a valid trade setup on a blue MTP trend. If I place the analysis on, and I now do training mode again, and I want to look at the difference when you reach the first target here. Do you see the difference now? You see it's reached our target. You know, for a W3 is a wave 3 trade setup, so we're looking to this to be a wave 1, this to be a wave 2. We're looking for this to be a wave 3. Therefore, the first target is the typical wave 3 WPT. But can you see the difference now, Chris? When it's reached the target here, if you come down to look at the MTP trend, you see how now it's gone beyond it. So there's the MTP trend strength. That's the strength band. Can you see that along here? But can you see how MTP trend has gone beyond that? So what we do is we now deem that the market's strong. If the market's strong, we then look to run our trade by, rather than coming out at the target, we then can use our ATR stop, which is our blue dots here. So if I go forward, you can see the market just kept on going up, kept on going up, kept on going up, kept on going up, kept on going up. Here's our MTP, here's our ATR stop. So our target, our stop would be here, 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 here. So our protective stop would be up here at the moment. So rather than coming out with a 2.9 hour profit, our stop will be around here at 8.3 at the moment. If I keep on going, that's when it basically came into the next day. So this was a day session chart. So that, I think, was actually the end of the day there. So you'd come out at the end of the day. So can you see how it would have increased a 2.9 hour profit up into potentially 11 hour? Because you know that the market is strong. Right, Chris, I can see your slight misunderstanding. It's not, you don't look at this as the upper band and the lower band. You don't look at this as just a straightforward plus or minus scale. All we're looking to see is whether it's beyond the band. So if you're in a long position, the market is going up, so therefore you'll be looking at the upper band, and the MTP trend is probably going to the upside. If you're on a short trade, I haven't got an example here, but if you're in a short trade coming down, coming down like this, you'd then be looking at the lower strength band, and the MTP trend indicator would probably be below the zero line and would probably be going down. So if you're on a short trade coming down here, you'd only look here for this MTP trend to be beyond. So I say beyond rather than above or below, if that makes it easier to understand, is beyond the lower strength band. You see that's gone beyond it there. So in that case, we deem that the market is weak and therefore going to carry on down further. And you'd look to use the ATR stop to run it. In this case, it was strong, and therefore beyond it. So probably think of weak and strong rather than going up or going down. Think of weak and strong as strong being a trendy market. So in other words, it's going to go in the direction it's going further, and a weak market, rather than looking to go down, it means it's going to just go sideways. So that's probably what you got to, it's probably a better way to think about it, is if it's gone beyond the strength band, the market's going to carry on trending. If it's less than the strength band, the market's probably going to be going sideways. Yeah, that's exactly right, Chris. So like in this case here, the MTP trend is blue, but you're less than the strength band. You haven't reached the strength band. Therefore, the uptrend is weak. In other words, it's not going to keep on going up strongly. It's only once the market starts to turn like this and our MTP trend indicator has gone beyond the strength band, it's broken through it, that it then deems that strength is coming into the market, and as you can see there, it carried on through. Compare that to what we had at the start. The first example on this one here, if I go back to this, when it reached the first target, which it did at this level, if I go down, can you see here how the MTP trend was blue, indicating it was an uptrend? It was going up, but it was less than, it hadn't reached the strength band. Therefore, the rally was basically a weak rally. In other words, it wasn't going up very strongly. And if it's not going up very strongly, it's probably better looking to come out of your target. If it is looking to go strongly, like in the previous example, then it's better to try and run it. And if you're trying to run it, then you can use the ATR stop to run it. So does that make sense? And for everybody else, hopefully you all understand that as well. It's something we haven't gone over for a while as well. So thanks, Chris, for that question. Just want to remind you new guys who are new to MT Predictor that we're not a black box system. We don't look to blindly take all the trade setups as if it's a 100% mechanical trade system. We only look to take the trade setups when there's a clear pattern. And for that, we go to our higher time frame charts. I'm probably not going to go into detail on that at the moment because I want to go and have a look at actually Bitcoin, actually to answer another question in a minute. So I suggest you perhaps have a look at last week's webinar or any of the previous ones where we go over that in a lot more detail. So today is probably a bit more of an advanced one where we're answering a few more questions. Yeah, so Chris said he looked at on the YM. Let's have a quick look at that. Was there a trade on the YM this morning? Was it this one here? I'm guessing that one there. Yep, that's the one. You see, it hadn't really gone through the strength band, had it? If I zoom in a bit, it hadn't really gone through it. So it just about touched it, but it hadn't really gone through it. So in that case, it was a case of coming out at the typical A3 WPT. I mean, if you had been running this, well, then the furthest away you should have been was at the ATR stop, which was here. So at the very least, you should have had 1.3 hour profit. Yeah, the ATR, that's fine. So you got out of the ATR. So you made a 1.3 hour profit rather than a slightly larger one. So that's not too bad. That's absolutely fine. But yeah, a nice trade there, coming off there. Let's have a look at the higher time frame chart and let's go to the 15-minute and just see what happened there. Yeah, this is probably a good example actually that what we can use for the newer people among you. So what we use for looking to see where the market is in a clear position is we use our DPs. So for this, I'm just going to jump back to a bit earlier in the day. And for this, we use previous pivots. If you want to know exactly which pivot to use, there is a couple of webinars in the member section of the website that go specifically on which pivots to use. We don't use all of them. There are specific ones. And in this particular case, here's the high here. This is the last swing into the high. So it's the last swing into the high. So we right mouse click over this one because this is the place to select to take a DP off. So I'm guessing this is what you did, Chris. So this is on the higher time frame chart. So if you're trading a 3-minute, you go out to the 15-minute. If you're, say, trading dailies, you go out to the weekly, perhaps a 4-hour chart. If that's a 4x1, you go out to the daily. So you're looking for a time frame between 3 and 5 time frames higher. So can you see how this is on the chart in advance? Do you see that? It's a leading indicator. Note I'm not looking at the a scanner. I'm purely and simply placing our DP on the chart in advance. So it's there before the market gets there. What we're looking to do is that we're then looking to see if, not when, but if the market gets to that level, and if it does, what it does at that level. So here you can see the market got to this level, it then made a reversal. So now if you come down to the shorter time frame chart, can you see how at this level it was then making a reversal? Therefore, the large degree trend was deemed to be up. In other words, the market was making a reversal at the anticipated level. When it does what you anticipate, it deems that the picture's clear. There was a VS buy setup earlier, so if you had have taken this one may have been stopped out from -1 hour loss. It may well have done. Losing trades do happen, but this is where we keep our initial risk small under control by using position sizing, in this case risking 2% on a $20,000 account. So that would have been a -1 hour loss. It then came into Chris's trade that he has just highlighted here, where you had another long trade setup. But can you see how this trade setup came after the market made the reversal at the projected level? This is the important point to make, is that half the time markets are random. So you shouldn't be doing anything at all. But to try and deem when the market is in a clear picture, in other words, when it's doing what you anticipate, the market picture is then deemed to be clear. And that's when you can then look to take trades in that direction. So can you see how this was a support level? The market then started to go up. This was then confirmed. Notice how I use our MTP trend color after the DPs, not before. So this was confirmed by our MTP trend, was at the time here, this was blue. So this showed you that the market was coming up off higher time frame support. You then got a buy setup. This was then a good one to take into the first target there, where a profit of 2.5 times the initial risk was available. But can you see how that profit was larger than this previous loss? And that's what we're looking to do over time. Have profits that are large compared to the losses, have losses that are small, but not avoid them. And also there's a good trading lesson here, which I'm guessing what Chris did very, very well, is you have to be careful not to bring your stop to break even too quickly. Because even though the market came up here nicely, there was no reason to then bring your stop to break even, because particularly on shorter term charts like these 3-minute E-minis, the market will very often dip back into your entry level, into a small loss, before then going back with you again. Yeah, Chris says it's a kiss of death to bring your stop to break even too quickly. You're dead right, but psychologically it's really hard. Psychologically, when the market got to here, when the market got to there and you were sitting on, 2-hour profit, almost 1.5 hour profit, it's so easy to then psychologically want to bring your stop to break even so you don't have a loss. But this is what happens. Oh, I've got stopped out. Phew, I've avoided a losing trade. Isn't that good? I feel good. I feel a lot happier because I've avoided a loss. I've come out at break even. That's absolutely brilliant. Then suddenly it reverses straight back up again, and up it goes. Up it goes into your target, and you think, that break even trade has then missed out a 2.5 hour profit. So yes, it's a very difficult one to take. It is a very difficult one. But that's probably a good example there. So does that make sense then, Chris? And probably a good example there on a live trade that, well, it's not live because you were stopped out, but a trade that you're looking at yourself. And everyone else, hopefully that helps as well. Right, what I want to do now is I'd like to answer another question, but I'd like to come over here and have a look at Bitcoin. So this is our TradingView add-ons, and very interesting position on Bitcoin that I'll do a bit of analysis on in a moment. But another question that I had was on the use of the WPTs, the wave price targets, in TradingView on how to project the end of waves. So the question is this is a daily chart of Bitcoin at the moment. This is from Coinbase. So the customer came in and said he did his own manual Elliott wave count, and he had a look at this. And first I want to just use our Elliott wave tool, because this here looked like an ABC correction. So for this was -1. It was 1 bar back. So I want to do pivots back. I want to do 1 pivot back, enable the Elliott wave tool. So our standard Elliott wave tool analyzed on that particular pivot and looked at this and thought, yes, that looks like an A, B, C correction into the typical wave CWPT. So a few days ago there on the 15th, that looked like a nice end of an ABC correction. So I'll just leave that on there for a while. But what the customer was saying was he did a manual Elliott wave count starting from this last major high up here. And if I use the Elliott wave tool just to label in TradingView, so he started his sequence here. Just get that right. He started his sequence there. He said that was a wave 1. That was the wave 2. He said that was the wave 3. This ABC correction here, he said, was wave 4. He then was looking at this as a potential 5, and then was asking me, how do we use our tool to then project down where a potential wave 5 was likely to end? So do you see what he's looking at here? Start of the sequence, wave 1, wave 2, wave 3, wave 4, which unfolded as an ABC, looking for the end of wave 5. So I'll just hide that Elliott wave one there so it doesn't confuse things. So what we can do with our WPT or wave price target tool is project down to get the fib clusters of where the wave fives is likely to end. So in TradingView, we double click on the WPT script. It doesn't matter about the days to load here because it's a daily chart. This is only applicable if you're intraday. What I'm going to do now is I'm just going to tick this box here to display the pivot labels. So it just shows you these pivot labels here, because what we have to do with the script is we then have to tell the script where the individual pivots are for wave 1, wave 2, wave 3, wave 4. If you're using the standalone version, or if you're using a NinjaTrader, you can just click on the chart. In TradingView, we can't do that. We have to use script parameters. It's just the way the Pine coding language works. There's no way to be able to click on a chart, get that level, and then use that within the code. Maybe sometime in the future, if TradingView enable that or allow that, that'll be really nice. But for now, we have to do it by the script parameters here. So can you see how we're starting the sequence up here at pivot 227? So the first thing to do is I'm not going to tick that box to display it quite yet because I want to get the parameters in first. I'm going to come down here and say, what wave pattern am I looking for? Well, I'm looking for the end of a wave 5. Which direction? Well, it's going to be a down, isn't it? Because it's off that wave 4 and it's looking to come down. I'm then going to use the pivot number, okay, for telling us what option here. I mean, you can use the last pivot, pivots back, bar number, or I'm going to use the pivot number because we have the pivot numbers here. So it starts at pivot number 227. So I'm going to put 227 in there as the start of the sequence. I'm going to come back down here to the next one. You can see here's the tip. So for wave 5, we have to do this one as well. Again, pivot number, leave it at intermediate, any, and this one here is going to be 228. Next one down here is going to be the wave 2, which is going to be 229. The next one here is going to be the wave 3. So again, pivot number, this one's going to be 230, isn't it? 230 there. I come down here, which is the last one, which is the wave 4. Now this one's going to be pivot 233, because remember we had our ABC correction there. So this one's going to be pivot 233. So do you see what I've done? I've just literally told the script which pivots are the start of the sequence, which pivot is wave 1, which pivot is wave 2, which pivot is wave 3, which pivot is wave 4. Now I've done that, I can go back and tick the box to display it, and you can see what it does. It places the WPTs on the chart for us. I'm just going to take off the pivot labels there. Now it's decided to take it all off there. Let's put it back on again, that's fine. I'm just going to remove the one we used to start with, because once we place the WPT on, our tool actually gives the labels as well. So do you see what we've done? We've done a manual Elliott wave count from the high there to wave 1, wave 2, wave 3, ABC correction into wave 4. And can you see now how it gives you the levels here, the minimum wave 5, the typical wave 5, and the maximum wave 5 down there as well. So it gives you the projected levels of where a potential decline in Bitcoin possibly is going to find support. I mean, obviously it's hard to try and pick the end of wave 5s, and I wouldn't recommend you try and do that unless you're probably at hard time frame DP support, and you're not, because if you go to a weekly chart, I'm not going to do that just yet, but if you go to a weekly chart, it's just a huge swing up. But if you guys are using the TradingView scripts, do you see how you can do that now? By literally just telling the script which pivots equate to which Elliott wave swings or swing pivots you want, and then it just projects the WPT levels for you. These WPT levels are just fib clusters. I say just, they are fib clusters using the correct ratios of the correct swings, clustered together, does the maths, find out which are the closest together, and then puts the zones on the chart for you. So it's not just one fib projection here, like quite a few Elliott Wave tools I've seen in the past, but it's a cluster of them. Yes, Chris, you're dead right. NinjaTrader is so much easier, but with TradingView, it has so many advantages in that it's web-based, so it can be, you can even run off your phone if you want to, or your iPad, so you can have it with you what you want. It can run off Macs. It can, it's very versatile from that, and it has so many markets. It has lots and lots of positives with it. The only downside is, because we have to work in their scripting language is really, really limited. So there's very little we can do on that. So we have to basically work with what we can do. So for you guys who are using TradingView, and it is quite popular among our MT Predictor customers, you can use that as well. Chris, there are lots of different data feeds. TradingView will give you delayed data. Delayed data for free. So virtually every market in the world has got is on TradingView, and the delayed data is is free. You don't have to pay exchange fees for the delayed data. If you want to have actual real lifetime data, you can either pay TradingView for that live data. I'm not sure whether Bitcoin's actually live. It might well be actually. Forex is live. For example, I have my e-minis on here. These e-minis, what I do with these, I connect to my TradeStation account. So there are lots of broker accounts. Oops, didn't want to do that. There are lots of broker accounts available here. You see, you can get lots of different brokers. Is IB in there? It may well be. There's lots and lots of other ones you can have, which you can trade off the TradingView charts as well. But for example, I've got a TradeStation account, so I can connect my data to my TradeStation account and get free live data for the e-minis from TradeStation. So as far as data feeds, there are lots and lots of options to have that as well. So it's just quite nice to have that, effectively available on a web-based platform that you can use just really, really quite easily, even though it's a little bit clunky sometimes because there's no mouse clicks. Mazir, I know you use TradingView, and I've quite a few other guys who are using TradingView as well. And I must admit, I personally quite like having TradingView in one on one computer screen. That's why this is my setup I use myself. I have the 3 minis here, just sitting here all side by side, which I can quite easily keep an eye on and just skip through them if I want. They're there. It's always available. The only thing that they don't have, Chris, and I know you'll miss that, is they don't have day session only charts for the e-minis. I know you trade the e-minis. They don't have the day session only charts. They have told me that they are going to add those in, but when they'll do that, I don't know. And Mazir, I know you're waiting for that as well. And every time I ask them, they keep saying yes, it's imminent. They're testing it, but it still hasn't appeared, has it? So we'll have to wait for those. Right. So that was that. But actually, while we've got Bitcoin, just want to have a little look at what we've got here. So I'm just going to untick that there. So I just think this is quite amazing. Elliott Waves, I'll just take that off there. Right. Interesting enough, our MTP trend is still blue, but you can see what was happening as the market was going up into, this 64,000 level up here, particularly off this pivot here. Let's just place a DP off this. So again, we have to use our pivot labels. So I'm just going to place the DP off pivot 223. By the way, if you're just doing a DP off the last pivot, it's quite easy because, say you're just doing a DP off this one here, you just do a DP as one back. So what I'll do is just do pivots back. I'll have just one here. If I select it, can you see how it puts it on the chart really quickly and easy? So if you're doing this live, you don't have to worry about the pivot numbers. You can just do either the last pivot or pivots back. That's quite easy. But I want to put the DP off this pivot 223. I'm going to do pivot number, pivot 223, because this is what I thought was rather interesting. Look what happened here. When Bitcoin went up, look where it made the high. Right slap bang at that DP level. Remember, these DPs are on the chart in advance. You guys have been with MT Predictor for a while. Okay. Look at this bar here. Do you see the bar I have my cursor over? This bar here went through that pivot. It made quite a wide range day, but look down here on your MTP VS. Do you see that there was red? So that told you that that bar there was a high volume bar. A high volume bar that pushed through a previous pivot, then went into a DP level. What do we do the very next bar? The very next bar we see to see if the market has followed through. So on this bar here, can you see how it gave a red sell bar? Do you see that? Particularly Mazir, you need to look at this. Do you see that was a red sell bar after this high volume VS bar that had broken through that previous high that was at DP resistance. So can you tell me what that setup would be? Can anyone tell me after I've described it in that way? Hopefully every single one of you should be able to tell me that that was a VS sell. Now, if I take off our, actually, I don't want to do that quite yet because there's something even more spectacular in a minute. But yeah, it's a VS sell. Now, even though it wasn't printed on the chart there at the moment, can you see by understanding what a VS sell is, you can look at this and actually know that that is an area of where you think the market might make a reversal. So wouldn't it be nice to know that Bitcoin wasn't an area here where a reversal was likely to happen and a sell setup was likely to come in? This was on April the 14th. That was the very bar of the high. So this is nothing new to you guys who've been with MT Predictor for a while. Now, it's a bit of a pity that if I unhide our advanced trade setups, that it didn't actually pick that up. I know it didn't because I was looking at this earlier, but just look at this. Look at that there. There was the high. Here was the initial decline down. Here was our initial correction. What kind of setup do we have here? A TS1, W3 or Wave 3 trade setup there. So if any of you guys who'd be looking at Bitcoin and were thinking for a potential area for a sell setup, that would be a lovely one to take. Now, the only issue that I have on this is that our MTP trend is blue. Our MTP trend is blue because if I go to the weekly chart, basically it was just vertical, wasn't it? It just gone straight up, bang. So there was no DP resistance on the higher time frame, which is a bit unfortunate. But for you guys who are a little bit more experienced with MT Predictor, can you see how first and foremost you could use the DP here to get areas of potential resistance? Notice also at the peaks of our MTP trend. Now, I don't talk about this at all myself, but Mazir was actually dead right. Just look at this. Here was a peak here. There's the peak on the MTP trend. As the market made new highs, can you see how the oscillator was making a divergence? It was making a lower peak. As it came up here, this then made another higher peak on price, but it then made another lower peak on the oscillator. Divergence. So in fact, you had 1, 2, 3 peaks here on 1, 2, 3 lower oscillator values. So in other words, as Bitcoin was rallying up here, the oscillator was giving you a hint that there was weakness coming in. This is like standard technical analysis. This is what we don't really this is not MT Predictor as such. But can you see here again how you could have used that with your DP tool to not only get an idea that the market was getting weaker or the rallies were getting weaker because the oscillator was making lower peaks, but also these peaks were unfolding at our DP resistance, which we know is an area where markets like to make a reversal. And this last one, I actually loved it because of that VS indicator there on April the 13th on that big wide range bar through there with a failure to follow through the next day. Can you see how again there, by just knowing or understanding what we do in MT Predictor and the automatic setups, even though it didn't find that as an automatic setup, can you see how manually, if you'd been on the ball, you could have looked at that and thought, well, actually, that looks like a high's coming in. Even if you missed that, we had the initial decline down, the initial correction. There was our W3 trade sell setup. And what's happened since? Well, the market has then started to decline since there. So I just thought it was rather amazing that everyone's been talking about the collapse in Bitcoin and trying to blame it on China, banning Bitcoin. I think I see now that they're actually banning the banks from actually accepting Bitcoin transactions, which obviously isn't going to be good for Bitcoin. But purely and simply using our MT predict analysis, can you see that it all fits in? Not only that peak there, but particularly this next sell setup here. So, no surprise at all, really, for anyone who's following Bitcoin on a slightly longer time frame with a bit of MT predictor knowledge thrown in as well. So I just thought that was very interesting to have a bit closer look. That's a bit of a pun there with Bitcoin. Sorry about that, but a bit of a closer look at Bitcoin, because I don't tend to look at it, which I thought was rather amazing to see how the MT predictor tools have actually sort of nailed what's going on there quite nicely. But for the user who had the question about using the WPT or wave price targets for projecting the potential end of this decline down here, hopefully that's helped answer your question as well, how to use the WPT tool in our TradingView scripts. Right, well, that's taken up quite a bit of time there, but I think that's fine, because I hope you've all enjoyed taking a bit of a look at Bitcoin, and particularly our TradingView scripts there. So are there any questions from anybody in the last few minutes of the webinar while we just wrap up? Are there any questions on anything that anyone would like to ask in the last few minutes? And Chris, hopefully that's helped answer your question on using the strength bands. There we go there, the strength bands for managing your MT predictor trade setups. So for example, if there was a sell setup here, then if you were short, at the moment the MTP trend is weak. Can you see that? Because it hasn't got to the strength band. Yeah, Chris is saying that yep, that's a really odd picture, isn't it? He was saying that we've got the NQ streaming up or screaming up, and the YM is screaming down. Yeah, this is one of those situations where the markets are not in sync, and it's quite difficult when you have the two markets doing the different things. That's why I like having them all side by side like that. It's quite nice. Right, so I don't think there are any questions from anyone. So what I'll do is wrap up today's webinar. So hopefully you've all enjoyed today's webinar. Hopefully you enjoyed seeing Bitcoin. Hopefully you enjoyed having a look at some of the questions we had, and in particular, I just want to remind you all on. By the way, this is delayed data I have here on this particular chart here for our standalone. That's why it hasn't started screaming down as we saw in TradingView. That was my live data from TradeStation. And just a reminder of you all that we're not a black box system. We don't look to trade 100% of all our automatic setups. We look to project our DPs on our higher time frame charts. We project them in advance. Okay, that's what we're looking to do. We're looking to project them in advance to then get areas of potential support and resistance. If, not when, I say if the market gets to those levels, we then look on the time frame we're trading off, i.e. the shorter time frame, to see whether the market's making reversal at those levels. If it is, we then look for trade setups either in and around those levels, like that VS buy setup there, or after that level in that same direction. So as the market starts to turn up here, you then be looking for buy setups as the MTP trend turns blue. And yes, you'll have losing trades, as we saw in that VS buy setup there. But yes, you'll have winning trades, and this is what you're looking for here, but to have the winners that are larger than the losses. So a -1 hour loss there, a plus 2.7 profit there. That's what we're looking to do with MT Predictor. So hopefully that's a good summary of what we're looking to do there. Right, so hope you all have a good trading week, everyone, and hope you've enjoyed today's webinar and a bit different, looking at some other different things. So have a good trading week. If there are any questions that I've missed, do drop us an email. You can get through to me, steve@mtpredictor.com, and we'll try and answer the questions in next week's webinar. Otherwise, have a good trading week, everybody, and we'll see you all again next week.